So now we're going to be looking at some pivot tables. What will be included in the video will be creating a pivot table. You can then see how you can convert that to a chart. Some people like to use it in the chart version. Manipulating a pivot table, in other words, sorting, grouping, and moving things around so that you can use filters within it as well. So hopefully it'll start you off using them and you'll get used to it and enjoy them. Thank you. And pivot tables are great for showing lots of information in different ways. Obviously, you can do it in charts as well. I like the charts myself, but pivot tables are really good too. So pivot tables is found in the Insert tab and right in the top left-hand corner. Easily arrange and summarize complex data in a pivot table. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. So if we click on the Create tab at the bottom of your workbook, and hopefully if I bring this down a little bit, you should be able to see why I've got things the way I have. So first of all, click in the pivot table data, click on the Insert tab and Pivot Table. We'll bring this down here. And what we've got is we've got a pivot table based upon the information that's been, it's got a hash around it all the way down to the bottom, so that's fine. And we're going to pop it into the existing worksheet, and the location is going to be where I've made it easy and placed it in the I-10. Okay, so I've marked it out for you. So once we OK on this, we get this template for a pivot table and the pivot table fields in our survey ready to be dropped in to where they need to go. So I'm just going to bring this over slightly so you can see it. Notice how the pivot table disappeared. I click back on here, the fields will come back in. Okay, so the pivot table pane can disappear once you go off, back on, and it's there. So what we're going to do is going to follow this. We're going to drag the town to the row labels, and we don't need to tick these, we can just drag and drop. We're going to drag, this is it building now, the sex field to the column area, the town again to the values area, because we're going to do a count of the town. Now it's come on count, probably because I've done this before. So if we go to the value field settings, it can be changed to something else. So if the exam asks you, or in the real world you're doing your own, it asks you to do a particular function, then you would choose it here, but we're happy with count. And you can see that I just pop this out of the way, you can see our pivot table is there. When I jump on there, it comes back on. So at the moment we've got a survey with let's just bring that in and in there. We can see that we've got 2 females in Bristol and no males. So if you're asked to sometimes update the table with information, for example, if I just find a Bristol female and change that to a male with an M, when I've done that and enter, it doesn't change on here. I have to update or refresh the pivot table in order to do that. So if you right click, you get the option to refresh. You also have these tabs at the top. You've got an Analyze tab where you can find the refresh, and a Design tab as well. If you want a chart of your pivot table, you can click there and it will produce a chart. That's not necessary for the exam, just so you know. The field list is off, the field list is on. Okay, another way of getting there. So you've got everything you need in the exam to do that. So if we did refresh there, then that female becomes 1 and the male becomes 1. Okay, if we're going to do anything with regard to the rows, we can filter, because we've used it in the rows area here. So we could filter out particular towns and get the information for that. Okay, and then back on. If you work through here, you can see things like, I mean, you can have a look for yourself, but I've been messing around. And in this one, you can sort. So in our main one here, we can sort the data and the information of the grand total a particular way if we wanted to. And that would change it like that, or back to the other way. Okay, so you can just click in there and do a sort if you're asked to. So it's pretty straightforward. The next area that we're going to cover in the syllabus for pivot tables is grouping. So if we open up the grouping workbook, and I popped in another example of sorting just to remind you that that's how you can do a sort. People think they can't in a pivot table, and you can. And also I've popped in a way of doing that filtering again if you wanted to have a play with that. You can see here that that's your filtering. What we're going to concentrate on is this grouping. So to ungroup this area, if I right clicked and did ungroup, it won't do anything. If I go to the Analyze tab and ungroup, also won't do anything. But if I click on the group itself and right click and ungroup, they become ungrouped and back to just single data. If I wanted to follow the question or the instruction down here, let's say it's in a test question, it wants me to define a Tyneside group, including Newcastle. Let's click on Newcastle, Control key, South Shields, and Tynemouth. And it wants me to group all of those under a group name Tyneside. So right click and group. There's the group one there. So I just type in Tyneside and it overtypes. Click in, and there's my group. Okay, so you could do this on a number of things. You could put it into areas or regions. So that's manual grouping. And there's another one there if you want to play with it. What I'd like to do though before I finish this series is have a look at a diagnostic example of grouping. So the third one in the folder, we just open that up. So there's two areas in here I'd like to look at: the grouping and filter to hide selected items. So if you click in the dates and you click on group, so it's picked up all of the dates. If you can see down there, it's got 2006 all the way to 2008. And it's asking us to do it by quarters and years and take the months off. So if we OK, then it does it accordingly. Let's just undo that. Let's say in the exam, it didn't quite pick all the dates up automatically. So you can highlight using the little down pointed black arrow. When you do a click, ordinary left click, it will pick them all up automatically. And then you could do the group. It's got exactly the same information, but if these aren't ticked and you don't notice, you may not be doing the way you want to. Okay, so you can see that that one's worked. With regard to the filter to hide selected items, if we want to hide the East, we'd right click, there's the filter, so we're looking for the same language, right click and filter, and we're going to hide selected items. So it's all hidden, we can't see it. And then if we do it to the West as well, so filter, hide selected items. So now you can just see the data that you need to see. And remember, just as a quick one, if they ask you to change the data in a table, it's not the pivot table, it's in here. So if they ask you to change something to a data for 8th of the 4th, 2006, West to 16, it's this that you refresh, not that. Okay, so just be aware of that. It's a simple one, but people tend to take it for granted.